Her murder is a mystery. A bright 16-year-old girl found dead in a nice Chicago suburb.
This is now wanted homicide. They're armed and dangerous. It's armed with a handgun. Offender is going to be a male Hispanic.
Police are searching for someone, but they won't say who.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be the worst post and possibly my last post.
The girl's dad posting on social media, sending a strong message to her killer. We're on the case, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Stewart. Well, hey guys, just want to say thank you for following this case with us. We are able to bring you this story because of our incredible partner, Morgan & Morgan. There's a reason why On the Case is one of the top true crime shows on YouTube, just like there's a reason why Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. For more than 35 years, they've been fighting for the people, and they've recovered more than $30 billion for their clients. The proof? It's in their track record with more than 1,000 lawyers across 100 offices nationwide. Hiring Morgan & Morgan, it's like hiring an army to go into battle for you. It's a team that will fight hard to get their clients the compensation they deserve. Not all law firms are the same. You hire the wrong one, you may be beat before you even start. So if you're ever injured, you can check out Morgan & Morgan, and their fee is free unless you win. And for more information, you can go to forthepeople.com/OTC. You can click the link below or scan the QR code on your screen. The girl we're talking about today is Lilly Bova, a high school sophomore, just 16 years old. And she's being remembered for being kind-hearted and for being optimistic about the future. And her life was just beginning before what happened on Saturday last week. And before we get into what we know at this point about what police are saying and about the investigation and that strong message that her dad is sending to whoever is responsible, I want to get into what we know about Lilly and the circumstances that led up to March 28th. So Lilly lived in Glenview, Illinois. It's a suburb just north of Chicago. It's still in Cook County, which is where Chicago is. And Lilly was a student at Glenbrook South High School. It's a big public high school in Glenview. It's actually regularly ranked as one of the top public high schools in the country. We found a report putting it in the top 10. But that student body, that school community, the entire community in Glenview is mourning this girl's loss. There was a letter that was sent to parents by the school that said that Lilly was a quiet spirit, but her teachers and those who knew her best said she loved deeply, was bright, positive, and mature beyond her years. Her kind-hearted and optimistic nature will sorely be missed. Now, Lilly's parents have been speaking out about how loved she was and how much she brought to the world. Her dad told WGN she is an instant angel. Now, as we talk about this investigation, what happened here? Retired detective commander with the Chicago Police Department, Will Svilar, is going to walk things through with us. And as we get started here, Will, I want to start with how this story began. Let's play this dispatch audio obtained by CBS Chicago.
This is now wanted homicide. They're armed and dangerous. It's armed with a handgun. Offender is going to be a male Hispanic.
So, Will, it's Saturday, March 28th. Spring break is just coming to an end for students at Glenbrook South. That's where Lilly went to school. According to WGN, she was at home with her older sister in an apartment complex where they lived with their mom in an unincorporated part of Glenview. And then it's 11 o'clock in the morning, and that's when this 911 call comes in that someone had been shot. We'll talk about possible suspects here in a moment. What we do know from what's been reported is Lilly's sister hears the gunfire. She goes into the room and she finds her sister. She had been shot, and Lilly is taken to the hospital, and that's where she passed away. Just from the initial call, the time of day that all of this took place, like for the investigators with the Cook County Sheriff's Office, how do they go about responding to this? What is that like?
Well, you respond to, the initial officers are going to respond to the scene, aid the injured, arrest somebody if they're on the scene, and secure the crime scene. That's the first thing the first responders are going to do, the first officers on the scene. After you secure the crime scene, you maybe do some initial interviews with people on the scene. Then you got to bring the investigators in, the detectives in, the forensic specialists in, and then the investigation gets further and deeper.
Because I think about, you don't know these people. If you're responding, you have no idea what the family dynamic is. You have no idea, who they are. And those are all things that you're going to learn as the investigation goes on. But I also just think of being in an apartment complex and, you have all of these different buildings from what we've been able to see in the Salem Walk apartment complex building. Like, what are some of the challenges? And obviously, if you're in Cook County, I mean, you know a lot about dense buildings that you have to go through with this, but like, what are some of the things that you're looking for when you go into the room and even just the complex itself?
Like I said, when you go into a complex like that, there's so many different ways in and out. And if you're not familiar with it, it could be a challenge. I mean, there used to be low-rise apartments that we would have to go into, and everybody you were looking for, you were chasing, knew the way out, but you didn't. So that's a challenge when you have an apartment like that. But what's one of the things that the dispatchers will do now is they'll run a history on that address, or they'll run a history on that area. And let me give you some information as to what's happened there in the past, maybe a little bit of heads up of what's going on if there's contact with the caller before. But again, you gotta be hyper vigilant when you go into these situations, especially when you're talking about a shooting and there's nobody, maybe the person's still at large, maybe the person's laying in wait. But your first priority is got to get in there and aid that injured person as quickly as you can.
And it seems like pretty quickly law enforcement, at this point, and at the time we're recording this, an arrest to our knowledge has not been made. But as far as suspects are concerned, police say the community is not in danger. And that's always a line that makes you kind of feel like it was targeted, or they have an idea of who might be responsible, just because it's not believed that this was a person who is a serial killer that is randomly attacking people. They called it an isolated incident. In the hours after Lilly was murdered, police say that they were looking for a person of interest as well. They haven't shared more information on that. What stands out to you, though, when you hear those specific lines used by law enforcement?
So this does not feel like a whodunit to me. This feels like that from the start, they have an idea who they're looking for. Now, the question comes in is, how does it go down? What are we going to get off the interviews from? I mean, was Lilly able to say anything to the first responders about what happened? Did the sister hear an argument? Could this have been an accidental discharge? Could this kid been playing with a gun and accidentally shot her? So these are all things that have to still have to shake out in the investigation.
Because I also think of, another line. This is from WGN. I thought this was interesting. The Cook County Sheriff's Office wouldn't confirm whether a suspect is in custody, but, quote, it is working with the Cook County State's Attorney's Office on the next steps in the case. Like, when you hear that line, and I also think she's 16. If this was someone known to her, I'm just speculating that, like, is this person a minor? What could factor into the type of information that gets released in moments like this, and why some information may not be released to the public at this point?
All of the things you just said are correct. We can only speculate, but when you talk about when we as detectives go and speak to a state's attorney, we have something to tell them. We don't just call them randomly and say, hey, we're working on a murder. We have no idea what we're doing or who we're looking for yet. When you consult a state's attorney's office, you're either consulting to present your case or you're looking for some advice. When you talk about the age, if it's a 16-year-old, you're not going to find out the name of the suspect. They're going to keep that closed. But when you're consulting the state's attorney's office, you have a specific reason to do it. Advice, or you're looking for a charge. So I think that they know who they're looking for.
Sadly, the Chicago area, and I know you worked homicides for a lot of your career. I mean, these are the type of cases that the state's attorney's office in Cook County, they deal with far too often. But I guess, how are they? Someone who's worked with the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, the Cook County Sheriff's Office, like, what is that like to work with these specific agencies in cases like this?
It's like everywhere else. When we have to deal with felony review, there are many instances where we are convinced and we are firm that we have a good suspect and we want charges. We can't make that decision. That decision's got to be made from felony review. And it's all depends, honestly, on who you're dealing with. And I hate to say this, and I don't want to be too forward with this, but there's a lot of times where they don't want to take a chance of losing a case in court. So in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I'm sure I'll get some backlash for this, I think there's cases that they try in the areas before they ever bring them to court. And if they don't think it's good enough, they won't bring it to court. But for the most part, if you get good state's attorneys and you get good felony review assistants, you work well with the detectives.
I think of Lily's family. Her dad has spoken to local media outlets. He's been, very public on Facebook with just what he's been going through for the last less than a week, and the shock of everything, the school and, what they're saying about just how special of a young, woman Lilly was. But he posted this video and I shared it with you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be the worst post and possibly my last post. broken hand. So I punched the wall. Some young punk from Piper killed my daughter with a gun.
And you certainly understand the anger that any parent would have. Anger, isn't the half of it, but when you see that video, and you're an investigator, and I'm sure you've dealt with families that are ready to go take matters into their own hands. I'm not saying that he is someone that would do that or would want to do it, but how do you deal with the emotions of families that are dealing with a rage that is very, very understandable in situations like this?
Well, you're right. Very understandable. And I don't know how I would react initially to the news that something like this happened to one of my kids. But what you have to say to the people that are in this situation is, listen, what would you getting locked up for the rest of your life do to help your daughter? Is that something your daughter would want? Is that something your son would want? Or, whoever the victim is that something they would want for you to do, throw the rest of your life away? So you got to try to talk them off the ledge as far as that goes. But I mean, I don't think it's that uncommon of an emotion in a situation like that.
Now, it's unclear what Lily's dad knows about this person of interest, whether he knows the identity of the person police are after. Lily's dad did post on Facebook the final messages that he and his daughter sent each other before she was killed, including one where Lily says, quote, "I love you very much, and hey, be safe and stay healthy. I love you so much more." Now, there is a group out there, as this investigation is continuing on, that's offering a $5,000 reward for information that will help bring Lily's killer to justice. That reward is being offered through the Youth Peace and Justice Foundation, which is a nonprofit. And then when you look at, if they know who did this, they feel pretty confident about it. I mean, how do you go about that point? If you're talking to witnesses and they tell you it's John Smith, and I think our expectation is, as the public, that police will then go track John Smith down very quickly, but there's a lot more to it than that. Like, what are the first steps in trying to figure out who this person is and where they might be?
Well, one of the things, you find out who the person is one thing, but also you have to try to find out what happened inside that room. Where did this happen? Did it happen in a common area? Did it happen in a room with a closed door and the sister just comes in after and sees the aftermath? Does the sister hear arguing? Like I said, you have to figure out or try to figure out what would happen at the time of the incident. Is it accidental? Is it intentional? And once you find a suspect, then you have to say, well, what do I have to bring them in? I can't just bring somebody in on a guess. I have to have some kind of probable cause to bring them in. And then from there, you have to build your case to where you lodge the appropriate charges. So there's a lot going into it. Like you said, I had some kind of an interaction with one of our former mayors who said it was a shooting that happened, and basically the car was found, blocks away with people in it. And he said, cars identified on the scene, person is in custody, charges. This is exactly what he did. And I said, well, if you want to call the state's attorney and do that, I'd be more than happy to go that way. But you just can't do that because there's distance involved and there's time involved. So it's not like it's a fresh on the scene arrest. So if we know who it is, it's one thing. What do we know? What can we prove? Two different things.
How long does that take? Because I know we all anticipate it being, the half hour to an hour television special where it's done. But I mean, even on the point that you brought up where, targeted accidental discharge of a firearm, we have no idea based off the information that's been released. And there's not a lot of what happened here, but like, how do you be able to put all of that together in a quick amount of time where even if you find this person, maybe they don't want to talk to you as a detective. Like, how do you get to the point where you say that this is what happened for sure, that we can hit this person with a specific charge?
Forensics, location of the wound. Is it a contact? Is it a multiple? Is it a single shot? Does it, the angles of the injury? Those are things that have to come into it, especially if you bring this person in and they don't want to talk to you. But if you get this person in and you think that possibly this is accidental, you have to try to explain to this person, listen, this person's dead. You were in the room with them or her. What happened? What's your side of the story? And just because there's a murder, or I shouldn't even say murder, there's a homicide, it doesn't mean that the charge of murder is going to be placed, but it also doesn't mean that there isn't going to be a charge. Reckless discharge, something along those lines. There's other charges other than murder, which is, when I saw the medical examiner's report, it said pending police investigation. So they want to know a little bit more about what happened in that room.
Because the dispatch says, I believe they use the term murder, but then when you get to, pending police investigation in Cook County, are things more, I don't know if like the right word I'm looking for, but they I guess, do they wait more than other agencies might in making that determination that this was a homicide, where they really wait for that police investigation to come forward?
Well, it also depends on the investigation. I mean, if you have detectives, and we go to most of our posts, we go to the autopsies with the information that we have up to that point, and we give it to the examining doctor to make a determination. And in this case, they could have went in there and said, listen, we're not sure how this went down. Then they're going to give you a pending police investigation. Or if they can't find anything obvious, they're going to pend it for tox or something like that. But if it's a straight murder, someone shot multiple times on the street, or we know what happened, they're going to call it a homicide. They're going to call it a multiple gunshot wound homicide. In this case, it's going to be a gunshot wound pending, and then they're going to decide if it's an accidental or if it's a homicide.
The fact that this happened at 11 o'clock in the morning, like as a detective, like what stands out to you about that, just that time of day?
Maybe somebody came over for a visit at 11. Like you said, the spring break was winding down. Maybe mom's not home. Maybe mom's at work, and it's just the two girls alone. And then they bring a friend in, or she brings her friend in because it's spring break. Now, that would also suggest, like you talked about earlier, that the person that they're looking for may also be young enough to be in school and out for spring break.
I know in, some communities, I mean, I think in Pennsylvania, there was a 12-year-old arrested and they did a perp walk with him, for a case a couple of weeks ago. In Cook County in Illinois, if it is, and this is certainly speculation, like if it's a minor, like how much information is typically released to the public in cases like that in the Chicago area?
None, basically, unless they decide to try this person as an adult. And you will never see a perp walk in Cook County anymore. They got rid of those years ago, regardless of the age of the offender. And
then just in general for you, like where, you look at, cases like this and you have other people who are in the house. We know her sister came into the room, according to reports. And then, this person was able to get away. Just like in general, like how common is a case like this in terms of some of the clues that investigators have to this point?
People typically don't stick around after they shoot somebody, regardless of the circumstances. And I've had more than one accidental where the person panics and leaves. Like I said, typically people don't stick around. That's a fight or flight thing. And flight is very common in that situation.
And we'll see what plays out next in this case. Obviously, you think of this family, the shock that they're going through, entire community there in Glenview, Illinois, really struggling with the loss of this young girl. We'll see what happens next in the investigation. Retired Detective Commander Will Svilar with the Chicago Police Department. It's always great to have you here on Law and Crime. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Chris.
There's a GoFundMe that's raised close to $20,000 at the time of this recording, and grief counselors are available at Lilly's High School as the investigation continues into what happened to her. Anyone out there with information that could help bring this person to justice and has information about what happened to Lilly, you can call the Cook County Sheriff at 708-865-4896. That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify, and we're also now streaming on Peacock. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.